today. But I have an amazing addition to Club Fantasy FFL joining me in just a second, and that's the amazing Hoov Tube, who already is looking dapper. Well, way more well fit. The fit is immaculate over me today. So you're going to have to wait and see that in a second as we roll into this week's video. We're going to do a mock draft, a startup mock draft. We're going to dive into all of that, a couple headlines at the beginning. You know how it goes. Let's jump right into this week's episode. What is going on today, Hoov? You are jazzing it behind stage. People, you are jazzing in front of stage. The energy for this show is already going to be immaculate. How you feeling today?
I'm feeling good. You know, the vibes are high. You know, it's your boy HOOV. It's me, baby. How we doing? So you might know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here. But today we're going to be doing a little mock draft. We're going to break it down for you. So it's going to be a good day. Happy Sunday. Happy weekend. Let's get her going.
Yes, sir. We got a whole 12-man mock draft out here. Superflex, diving into some different draft strategies that we'll talk through, see how the draft goes. We'll see, how people have moved. We've done a lot of rookie talk, and now we got to combine them up into the startups that are happening as we get our Dynasty itch scratched this month of May, as beautiful as it is. So we got a full group of people. We're going to get into that in just a minute. But before we do that, I want to quickly make sure that I didn't have the banner set up, Hoov. I'll be honest with you. Didn't get the banner set up. But would you rather jump right into the mock draft, given a little bit of a later start on my end? That's my fault. Or would you rather go through a couple headlines first?
How about we get in? We got people waiting for us in the mock draft, so let's get this thing kicked off, and then we'll save all the good questions for the end, and we'll break them down nice and thorough.
Fantastic idea. I think it's a fantastic idea. So let's jump right into this. Again, it is a Superflex mock draft. I am picking from the 2 spot. Hoov, are you you're picking from the 12 there? Now, as I start this off, because like you said, let's not keep anyone waiting. Let's get the festivities going. What was your thinking, or what is your thinking when you're picking from the 12 spot? How do you approach a mock draft like that? Do you aim towards a certain position or anything like that?
For the viewers out there right now, sorry, I might have to plug in my MacBook real quick. I forgot that it wasn't plugged in. Apologies on my end. So I just wanted to elaborate that it is a 1 quarterback league for anyone that didn't check this out so far. So we're seeing that, or no, it is Superflex. I apologize. So it is Superflex. So you're going to probably have to just see what falls to you. You're probably going to have to go after 1 quarterback at some point in the first 2 rounds. But also, I'm a big zig when you zag kind of guy. So I want to see what falls to me. There's a lot of good quarterbacks out there in this market this year. So I'm interested to see what all falls to me. So I'm going to use this big brain today.
Yeah, and I think
pick.
We're already seeing that happen, right? Where 6 quarterbacks off the board to start, and that makes sense in a super flex. We're looking to anchor down that all-important position. And then it felt like at 6 was that first time that we had a drafter think a little bit, and that's why, because Justin Jefferson was passed on for Caleb Williams, who Justin Jefferson ended up going at the 1-7. So I'm curious if that line is the same for you, of once you get those first 5 quarterbacks off the board, those bona fide studs, and then you get a rookie phenom in Caleb Williams, would you rather take him or would you rather take a Justin Jefferson? Is that a zig when you're zagging, or is that just more so taking the value?
I think that's kind of just taking the value right there. Of all these quarterbacks right here, you knew that these guys were locks for the first round. CeeDee Lamb, with how he produced last year with Gator grabbing him in the first round, not a bad idea by any means, but I think Chase still should be above Lamb in these rankings right here. So right now, I think that's the only zag right now that we're seeing.
Yeah, and we're about to see a ton more as we're going through this mock draft here. And again, this is expected to be roughly 17 rounds long. I don't know why I say roughly, because it is 17 rounds long. Assuming all of it, which we should. But Hoov, as you're making this pick, you got the roundabouts. I'll let you do that. But with your picks, you'll be able to add some context. But when
That's a
you're
snipe right there.
with Richardson,
Yeah. All right, I gotta make my pick real quick.
no. Now,
I'm still gonna do it.
yeah.
I'm gonna do it right
Ooh,
there.
and there you go. That might be the textbook definition of zigging when zagging, or zagging when zigging. I don't know the right
And
way.
then I think I'm gonna be bold.
Let's see. Either way, interesting. Okay.
I'm gonna raise Kyler's ADP a little bit right here. We're seeing Jordan Love, Herbert, and I think Lawrence was above him too. Right there, that's like the zig when you zag. You're seeing guys like Anthony Richardson go right before. That was a great pick. That was a snipe on his end. I like having that mobility. I like having a solid RB1, and that's kind of the zig when you zag. So you see the top three are out there. Christian McCaffrey, you know what he's going to produce. Amon-Ra, Amon-Ra is a top 5 wide receiver in Dynasty, but, there's so many great wide receivers out there right now. I think that I'm going to take a stab on CMC, lock up that RB1 position, and then steal Kyler and race his ADP. So what do you think about it?
I think it's definitely interesting. I do have a couple questions about it, but I think the big thing is knowing knowing the risk you're taking with taking a non-quarterback when you're on the edge there. I mean, you did with Kyler Murray, but I'm curious on how much you worry about that long term, because obviously it's going to be quite a while until your next pick. Do you worry about missing out on your QB2, or do you kind of embrace the chaos and find it out through there?
I'm going to embrace it because there's a few that go pretty low in the rankings, and I think that they're going to fall back to me, and I think I might even get them with the 4. Joey Wright has said it best, that there's just like when you can find a late round quarterback that you're just in love with, then maybe you take him around earlier than normal. But if you can find that guy, I'm definitely going to buy in on him. So we'll see if he drops.
Yeah, well, maybe the Kyler Murray wasn't such a reach or anything like that, but Gator upset about you taking Kyler there. But either way, the other thing I wanted to mention there, Josh brought up a good question of why Christian McCaffrey, who's obviously up there in age, turning 28 in June, over a Breece Hall, a Bijan Robinson, even Jahmyr Gibbs, those second-year type of running backs that are, or rookie contract running backs, I should say, that are really the new hotness in fantasy football.
I believe in what I see. I'm not saying like Hall or Bijan like by any means are bad, but it's kind of like what you're going to get a Tyreek Hill at the wide receiver position. So are you still going to take him knowing what he's going to produce the last few years of his career? I know I'm going to get what I'm going to get out of CMC. Bijan, there were some games with Arthur Smith, like that it was messy. He's gone, but still, like, we don't know the chemistry with Kirk Cousins. We don't know if they're going to be pushing the ball with Drake London and Pitts, and same thing with Breece Hall. Like, we're seeing Malachi Corley. All right, I'm going to do it here then.
Yeah, go.
All right, my guy fell back to me. So I'm going with another mobile court. I'm going to change up real quick. So that's my second quarterback right here. I want Jaden Daniels to fall to me. Now I got Kyler Murray and Jaden Daniels. I got a young quarterback. I got slightly older, but I think Kyler Murray easily could finish as a top 5. And Jaden Daniels with his mobility upside, like with the offensive line that Washington has, he might not be able to use his mobility as often this year until they really build up that offensive line. But just the pocket passer that he is and the way that he reads his wide receivers and what they're going to do, I really believe that he could just be a top 12 quarterback right off the bat. And then when you add in that mobility down the road, that's a top 5 quarterback. So I feel like I'm looking at easily top 8 quarterbacks for the next few years. And I got them in the second and third round.
Yeah, and the third round reversal definitely helps with that. And I think I hope Jaden Daniels stays upright, man. I'm a little bit worried about that, the frame he has behind Washington and what we've seen Washington give up in recent years in terms of hits on the quarterback. I really hope it works out for Jaden Daniels, because he'll be such a fun player if across fantasy football and the NFL. Yeah,
he's a smart player. I'm slowly buying in on what Washington's doing over there. But to go back to the Breece Hall comment, not like I think Breece Hall or Bijan are going to be bad by any means, but they're going to really want to get everything out of Aaron Rodgers that they can, in my opinion. That's why they drafted Malachi Corley. They're going to be pushing the ball. They're going to be using Garrett Wilson. They're going to be trying to get the most out of Mike Williams for the games that he's available. So Breece Hall is going to still be fantasy relevant, but like, is he going to be Christian McCaffrey? I'll believe it when I see it type thing.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a high bar to hit of trying to draft the next Christian McCaffrey. I understand the thinking of just taking a Christian McCaffrey instead of the guy who might end up being Christian McCaffrey. But I'm curious about your, the process that puts you on, or the railroad that it puts you on. I'm trying to think of an analogy. I'm struggling, Hoov. But for this purpose, when you're taking Christian McCaffrey in the first round, despite, going a little bit younger at quarterback after, do you feel compelled to draft a more win now team?
I'll see what pieces fall to me still, because like in a dynasty league, Christian McCaffrey, the value right there for like a running back up to his caliber, it's still, up there with Breece Hall and Bijan. So even if I don't draft the most win now team, and you could always flip Christian McCaffrey for a king's ransom. So I'm not that worried about going full win now mode, but it's definitely on my mind. I would say that.
Yeah. I think it's a common misconception of people feel like the first 2 picks will decide the rest of their draft. But realistically, we can still go so many directions with it. And the thing to remember as well is just that so many I'm gonna take an interesting stab here, maybe. Oh wait, no, I won't, because Ryan just took Jared Goff and I was an idiot for not taking him with my first pick. That's awesome. Thanks, Ryan, for that. You're a wonderful person. I love you. Let's just zag a little bit more. But yeah, and it doesn't put you on a permanent path. I think that's the only thing, important thing to remember is you can draft a veteran and you can still draft a rookie after, like you did by taking Jane Daniels or something like that.
Right.
So it's a good way to balance it out to still decide what direction you want to go in, and we won't end up with these rosters in week 6. We will make trades. We will make moves. Things will look very different. So just always something to keep in mind, at least.
How are you liking your build so far? You got Allen, Lawrence, Olave, Pittman.
I'm a little bit on tilt, because I made the oversight of not taking Goff. I would have loved to lock up that QB3 spot, even, especially in a 12 team. And we've talked about this on the show with Joel before about the value that quarterbacks just hold in Superflex. They will never be cheaper than they are in your startup. They will always be more expensive. And Jared Goff coming fresh off that big money extension, I really wish I had made a pick there and then would have been happy with whatever receiver came around. But ultimately, it's something I'll be fine with because I do like Chris Olave and Michael Pittman quite a bit. And anybody that knows the show knows that I will load up at receiver and quarterback most of the time before I touch my running back position. But again, it's just who falls there. I was definitely considering Saquon and not JT, but Travis Etienne, both of which went a few picks later.
Do you do rankings?
I don't have explicit Dynasty rankings. I have Dynasty rookie rankings and a very loose list that needs to constantly be updated. But yeah, in terms of how I view them, it's remarkably close. It's definitely the same tier between all these running backs. I would have Kyren Williams probably a step below, but I'm kind of a noted doubter of Kyren Williams. So I'm curious. I'll ask you about that. What's your thoughts on Kyren Williams and him going in the 4th round here in between 2, dynasty wide receiver studs in Michael Pittman and Jalen Waddle?
I really like that build so far. Stroud, Nakua, Taylor, and Williams. I'm gonna go double right here. Boom, boom.
Whew.
All right. I want two wide receiver ones right off the bat. I want to fill up that wide receiver core. I want DJ Moore, and people might be a little worried. We'll go back to Kyren Williams. I just want to elaborate on Moore for a second. Moore with Justin Fields, the first time that he has a quarterback, he was wide receiver 6 in PPR and half PPR, both. So I'm going to believe that DJ Moore has shown with the talent that he is in his time in Carolina, with his time now. How am I supposed to change that? I tried changing that earlier. So with Adunze coming on, like I feel like they're still gonna be loading up more right off the bat. With Shane Waldron coming over from Seattle, we kind of saw how JSN was used. Not like he's going to be fully in that JSN role, but we know how he just like operates his offense. And I really like more just staying at a top 12 wide receiver, and then DK Metcalf with him gone. I feel like that's really going to open up a lot of things for him. So DK Metcalf, DJ Moore, that's my wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 right there.
Yeah, you can't complain. And those are two teams that are, or two players as well, that will appeal to every Dynasty roster. If you can make the case for a reload with any of those guys, you can make the case for contending with either of those guys. So just overall good Dynasty prospects to have. But did you want to touch on Kyren Williams? Because I say enough bad things about him at times, despite how good he was towards the end of last season. But with the addition of Blake Corum, I assume that doesn't worry you. It doesn't worry Joel. But what are your thoughts on Kyren Williams going here in the 4th round, ahead of a Travis Etienne, ahead of a Saquon Barkley?
I believe that I'm not worried very much. I'm a Blake Corum guy, and I believe that Sean McVay is going to utilize him in the times that he does, but I view it very, very similar to Seattle's backfield as well. Like, everyone was so worried about Kenneth Walker last year, even though he showed you what he can produce at the NFL level, and he's a good running back. People still wanted to doubt him and still believe that that he was going to just get washed away by Zach Charbonnet. And I don't think that Blake Corum is going to eat up enough to take away from what Kyren Williams did. It's like Kyren Williams, a late round like running back that proved that he can be a running back 1. Like, it's like Isaiah Pacheco. Like, Isaiah Pacheco has proved that he can be an RB1 in this league. Yet people still are like, all right, this free agent running back, he's going to the Chiefs. They're going to build a super team. Like, Isaiah Pacheco has shown that he's good. Same thing. So I'm not worried by any means about Kyren Williams. I think he's going to be good. And that's hard for me to say as a Niners fan. But sometimes you just gotta say what you gotta say, and the talent shines through. What can I say?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad process to just trust the talent if you believe in the talent. And I mean, with Kyren Williams, we already saw that it's not even a huge thing if he's necessarily not efficient, because the touchdown opportunity is just massive. And could Blake Corum cut into that? He certainly could. But Blake Corum is such an interesting fit into that team. Do you think Blake Corum will affect goal line work? Because obviously he's a little bit undersized, but it's what he excelled at in Michigan.
I think there's more tread on the tires that I'm worried about in that case. He could be right off the bat, but it's not something that's going to scare me enough off of Kyren Williams. Like, we're seeing guys like Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, that one guy's going to be the explosive guy, one guy's going to be your goal line guy, and they're both going to eat at certain points of the year, like the Dolphins, or the Lions. And when they have multiple running backs that are getting the volume, they're both going to be fantasy relevant. So, yeah, I'm not worried about it. It depends on what the price is for Corum at a certain point. I could probably be interested in him too, depending on where it goes. But I'm not like super worried about Kyren because of the addition of Corum.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a testament to the lack of depth behind him. I mean, any team that's running Ronnie Rivers out there for any significant period of time needs to make an upgrade in the backfield. So 100% in agreement there. Tyler Binkley bringing up a good point here about our beloved Josh Hudson's team out here, who has landed not only Malik Neighbors, but also Rome Odunze 2 rounds later, and then also taking Ladd McConkey after that. So definitely a younger team there, with the exception of Mark Andrews. But what's your thought on the draft difference between Neighbors and Rome Odunze here, going a full 2 rounds apart?
I'm going to take my picks real quick.
No, please. It's my bad. I'm bad hosting for not getting not for asking you a question while you're on the clock. In the meantime, I could look at a wonderful comment from Toronto Dave, calling Hoov looking like a rock star, which is true. There is Michael Jackson vibes, and there's all the amazing iconic rock star
dirty
vibes.
Oh, that's so dirty. Oh, that's so dirty. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Dave. I'm sorry.
You got stage presence. That's what I'm
saying.
That
is eating. Oh, Jesus. Take Dell and JSN on top of that. Good Lord. Good Lord. Someone cut it out. There we go. Oh, good Lord.
Oh my
Sorry.
God.
Okay, what were we saying? We were talking about. Sorry, I'm
No,
walking
you're
through my
good. This is
shirt
about
after that JSN pick. That's crazy.
no, this
How
is
is
about as
JSN
chaotic
fall that
as this
far?
show gets, so that's totally fine.
I
I
got
was
2
pointing out
Seahawks. Look at me go.
yeah,
Let's
there you
go.
go. You're doubling up on that. I'm shocked you haven't taken Gino yet. But that'll be for the next one. Um, so the question is based on 2 rounds of difference between Roma Dunze and Malik Neighbors here with Josh's team
Yes.
from 3rd round to 5th round. Do you think that's too far of a difference? Because you were just touching before how you think might be a slower start for Dunze, but what do you think?
Let's look at the people in between them and just kind of see if you can't really like be mad at like rounds. It's more like, okay, like what wide receivers were available. Like
Right.
I'm gonna let this guy slide if I see this guy still there. So Neighbors went Wilson. Yep, I'll still take Wilson over him. London. Ooh, that's tough, but I think I'll still take London. And then I took Moore, obviously. Smith. Or no. Went Olave. Okay, I'm going the other opposite way. My bad. Olave, Pittman, Waddle. Those 3 are iffies for me. I would have positively taken above Adunze. Smith. That's not a bad pick, but I think I still would have taken Adunze over just at the age. And then I like Moore and Metcalf. Worthy, that seems like a lot right there. That seems very, very high to raise him over Adunze.
Oh
And
my
then
God, I
Nico
didn't even
Collins.
catch that. That's
And then Nico Collins, that one's another one that I still feel like Tank Dell is going to be the wide receiver 1 in Houston. He doesn't have the size to be a wide receiver 1, so I get where you're coming from. Nico Collins is a solid one. If Stephon Diggs, but I think out of all the wide receivers, I'm the least worried about Tank Dell, which is why I took him. But Nico Collins, I feel like he'll be affected by Diggs, and I feel like Diggs will be infected by Nico Collins. So Tank Dell will get his volume for sure. I can't be mad at the 2-round difference though with those guys. Maybe I would have done 1, but 2, yeah, seems kind of like a stretch.
It is a lot, and seeing Worthy going a few picks ahead, it's definitely noteworthy, right? And I'd love that if our if our amazing Shia Buff, who took Xavier Worthy, if you were in the chat, feel free to let us know about your process. I'd love to hear more about it. But as for how this draft is going for you, now that you're through 7 rounds, you're clearly ecstatic with the wide receiver heavy approach, a little bit of a HeroRB type of mindset going with your team there. So how are you feeling through 7 rounds? You're looking great, so I imagine your team's looking great.
I'm gonna feel great if I can land either a 3rd quarterback or a top tier 2nd running back. There's a few guys that I'm interested in. I feel like I might have to reach on a few, but right now I'm liking where I'm sitting for sure. I went into the mindset with zig where you zag, but looking at my team, I feel like these teams are gonna be zigging right out of the playoffs when they have to face me. How you doing?
See, that's a line right. That's a bar. We got to get that. We'll clip it and we'll play that regularly. But yeah, that thinking is exactly what led me to take Baker with my last pick. I'm so determined to have a capable QB3 in Superflex, especially in Dynasty where it's hard to acquire starting caliber quarterbacks. And whether you believe in Baker or not, whether you believe it was a fluke or not, the man got paid and the man will be the starting quarterback for multiple seasons. And frankly, I've always been a fan of Baker Mayfield. So I am more than happy to run it back with him, pair him with a 2-quarterback stack that if I need to get off from Baker Mayfield and I could retain my starters towards the end of the season, make that playoff push, I can do that. So that's kind of my thinking there. And
I love
I'm
that
almost
Kirk pick,
surprised
by
that
the way.
I'm the first team to take 3 quarterbacks here. I'm a little bit surprised by that, but I guess
we'll see if I'll join you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess it's testament to just the way the draft's falling because we have quite a few running backs, quite a few receivers. And I know you're about to go on the clock here, but What's your thoughts on Ryan's team so far here? Loading up on the veterans, really, with the Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, Mike Evans, Travis Kelce room of receivers and tight ends there. It's certainly a win now look, and it very well could pay off with how it's looking so far.
Is that really the price for Goff?
Yeah, that's. I made a mistake. I made he should have won at least a pick earlier. It's gonna bother.
No, who sniped me on Zamir White? Oh man, you got it coming.
For you, man.
You got it coming, man. You got it coming. Let me tell you. Woo.
Zamir White's such an interesting game in Dynasty right now because he's still acquirable. I think a lot of people can still get him. And Trey Benson going a pick before, Hoov being absolutely astonished for our audio-only listeners here. I can only convey this as just a deep level of shock that is akin to Michael Penix going number 8 in the NFL draft.
All right, I'm gonna reach. I'm gonna reach here because I'm out of time.
Ooh. 30-second clock, man. It forces tough life decisions. And it is interesting to see Aaron Jones there and David Njoku going there. I can audibly see you saying, "Oh my God, I'm gonna have to just get a heart check on you." What's the rate right now? What's the thought?
That's tough, dude. That Zamir White one hurt me, and then I was like, "All right, maybe this will be my first share of Benson." Nope, right there, and I'm like, "Oh, do I have to reach on Jones or is it time to finally get that quarterback I was looking at?" And I'm like, no, we're gonna risk it. We're gonna risk it for the biscuit, baby. We're gonna go another round. We're gonna see if he falls back to me. So if I get burnt, I get burnt bad. Because these two mobile quarterbacks, and trusting that they're gonna be healthy throughout the year, I don't know how great of an idea that is, but we're gonna risk it. We got David Njoku. I think I recently tweeted about it. I don't know if I sent it, because I don't want to rile up the Cleveland fans. Those fans are
I feel that so much.
Don't need to rile up the Cleveland fans by any means. So I wanted to say that the only receiver that I'm going to be drafting from Cleveland this year that's not named Amari Cooper is David Njoku, because I'm not buying Jerry Jeudy. I'm not buying any of the guys. I'm not buying Elijah Moore. I'm not buying any of the rookies, even though I love Jamari Thrash and David Bell.
Tillman?
Gone. Not on the radar, man. I can't do it. I don't believe in Deshaun Watson enough to believe that all these guys are going to eat. But I feel like David Njoku being the heart of the team, he's just going to get his volume. So I took him over my guy Kittle, and that kind of says what I think about Kittle's role next year. Is I feel like he'll be leaning more into the blocking game and won't be as fantasy relevant as a guy like David Njoku. That Ferguson pick, honestly, looking back on it, you probably could have talked me into Ferguson over Njoku right there too.
Yeah, I mean, with Jake Ferguson, of even if you get 2 more years of
no, who did it? Damn, that Aaron Rodgers pick is gonna kill me, man. I should have done it.
It's difficult. It's difficult to tell, and that's the thing. I think that's why we do mocks, right? It's to figure out who's going to make it around to you, who's going to make that turn. Because when you're picking from the turn, it's so difficult. It's so difficult to guess who's going to make it back to you, and that it's something that this is why you do mocks, because you get to see how you like teams based on how the board falls and what could happen. And Josh adding in that, and a very good point, I was going to bring it up, that Josh still isn't taking a running back now through 9 rounds, I believe, right? We're on round 10 now, and go another round without it by taking Christian Watson, really leaning into the Joel Worth vibes here. But still no running back there. We do have a good question from Tyler, but I do want to get your thoughts on the ZeroRB idea. Hoov.
Josh has got confidence. Let's just say, I thought I was being risky going 2 QBs, going ZeroRB. That's a lot to invest in Tyjae Spears. I'll tell you that. So let's see who he falls back to him. I can almost guarantee that in the next 2 rounds he'll be going running back. So Let's see who's all on the board. I guess let's look before we start casting judgment. Oh,
Sure.
all right. I know who he's targeting. I'm not going to take him for him, but
Okay. There
I
you go.
see who you're watching.
Yeah, well, won't be up to me. I can't do it. But Tyler, that's a really good question here that I think a lot of people, everyone really needs to think about is how important is snagging that third starting quarterback in a startup, and when is the best round to target your third? Now, I know you're about to go on the clock here, Hoov, so I'll take the jab first here. It's I think you bring up a great point before about how it's not necessarily about the round difference, it's about the positional difference, and that's the same thing with quarterbacks, same thing with tight ends, still same thing with everything. Where there's no best round to do it because it is somewhat dependent on your draft. If 12 wide receivers go in the first round of a super flex, then yeah, you can it backs up the quarterbacks that go. And it really makes quite a difference. But to not use a ridiculous hyperbole like that, um, it definitely depends on how deep your league is. As Joel has talked about on this show before and very successfully as well. He's talked about how difficult it is to get a startup quarterback, except in smaller leagues, those 10-team leagues, those 8-team leagues. It's not as important to have that third starting quarterback because there's more available. 12 teams and on, those prices go through the roof. So, Hoov, what's your thoughts on the third starting quarterback? Obviously, it was something you're looking to get, and you finally were able to nail down with, as it turned out, was Geno Smith, exactly, and totally leaning into the Seahawks vibe. Where's Sam Howell?
I had to go full send on that one. Like the correct answer is when was the right time to target a quarterback? 2 rounds ago for me. I should have got Rodgers right there. That's gonna kill me. But I got Geno Smith here. I wanted the stack. I wanted 2 stacks right there. And plus, like looking at the available guys, Sam Howell, he could be the future. It's gonna come down to more. Does Geno will produce this year? Geno has proven that he's not like a bad quarterback by any means. Is he going to produce up to the level of his contract, much like Russell Wilson? I could see that being a situation where, like, towards the end of the year, that if they're like not in contention and it's obvious that they're going to be looking at another quarterback down the road anyways, maybe this is a time where Sam Howell comes in and just sees what he can do and see if Geno is the answer or if not. Just because like the money, like the way that the cap is going up, teams are going to be less afraid to cut a franchise guy like that. And plus, like the Seahawks in the past, they cut Matt Flynn after signing Russell Wilson, and giving him that big deal. So I'm not worried about it. Geno Smith is going to get his volume just compared to the other guys here. Like, I like Daniel Jones here, but compared to Geno Smith, like that's a lot to ask out of Daniel Jones, just because of Malik Neighbors and Wendell Robinson. So I like those weapons surrounding Geno enough to make that pick.
Do you feel any pressure to take Sam Howell later? And if you want to keep it close to your vest, feel free to. But does that cross your mind at all to try to get that other quarterback in there?
Like in a Scott Fishbowl, I would. Not in this. I probably wouldn't, just because like there's guys I remember I was drafting last year that just shouldn't have been drafted, but I took my stab on him, like a Pierre Strong. He was rostered on my team. So I could see a Sam Howell being drafted in Scott Fishbowl in like the later rounds, whatnot. But right here, I guess let's kind of see what all falls before I make a commitment to that.
God, I am leaning into the QB heavy build with this by taking Derek Carr there. That is something I do not like. I have a vehement dislike for Derek Carr, and I have a long-standing vow not to have him on fantasy teams that I just broke, and I only break in mocks. But we did get a good question from Calvin about his team at the 106 here. I did want to make sure we so Calvin so far taking it'll probably be easier to pull it up on the team here. If I go to
love that Caleb pick, man. I really do.
Yeah, going Caleb with the 106 and then following it up with a running back, a quarterback, and a running back before dominating the wide receiver market there.
He's on the clock right now, so let's see who he picks first.
Oh, whoops. Oh my goodness, this draft board. Let's take a look at that, and he's going to be on the clock here. But And again, then tagging on the tight end spot. And I think a lot of people are forgetting about Pat Fryermuth and the opportunity that exists with Deontay Johnson out of town in Pittsburgh. And Joel has slandered Pat Fryermuth on this show more times than I care, and he's not here, so we get to talk positive things about him. And Pat Fryermuth had a terrific rookie season, especially by rookie tight end standards. And now, a couple of years later, already kind of cutting the bait, and I think that's a little bit silly. But what do you think about this this team so far, Hoov?
I think people have the right to be afraid of Pat Fryermuth after the Arthur Smith stuff. You never know what he's going to do. So I understand why he's fallen so far. He's definitely going to have top 10 weeks. And that's going to be what you're going to be banking on. I maybe would be looking also at another tight end and start looking at streaming. If you're going to be looking at a Fryermuth, but Fryermuth's not going to be like a bad fantasy tight end by any means. All right, this is where I got to use my big brain for a second.
Go.
So
use your big brain. Use your big brain.
All right, I got to go with another running back here, and I feel like between the guys that are available, I'm less worried about him losing his volume. And then here, I'm going to go with a wide receiver and someone that I know is going to get volume.
It's good value. I don't even like Sutton. I was considering him at my
Yep.
earlier. That's really good value on him. But especially when you see, day 2 prospects going right after him that won't produce this year, most likely. But
I mean, that 5 wide receiver core right there, you got Moore, Metcalf, Dell, JSN, and Sutton. So, like, one of those guys is out, I feel completely fine putting Sutton in one of those spots. So Troy Franklin eventually will produce in that offense with that relationship with Bo Nix, but Sutton has shown you consistently he is a weapon, he is talented, and he will be a part of that offense. It's fun to doubt the Broncos and like how bad they're going to be and whatnot, but there are also NFL players that are going to produce. So just because an offense is bad doesn't mean that there's zero fantasy relevant players on there. Cortland Sutton still could be very fantasy relevant.
that is called the Terry McLaurin rule, I believe, or maybe even the Christian McCaffrey rule, but who knows? Because he kind of ruined that now that he's on a good team. But either way, Big Pulowski also adding that 5 teams didn't have QB2, so he let the only child come out in him, and he took Daniel Jones as his QB4. So what's your thinking on, because that's something I did as well, what's your thinking about taking 4 quarterbacks in the first, 12 rounds, 13 rounds? First 12 to 13 rounds of this draft, we have a couple teams now with 3 to 4 or 3 quarterbacks definitely, but a lot of 4 quarterback teams as well.
I wasn't
you think we're crazy?
I wasn't super conspiracy theory about it last year, but in one league I did. It was a super flex league, and in the first, I want to say it was first 3 rounds, I went quarterback, just because the value that was there, and I think I took Richardson in that one too. And I was like, well, if he doesn't play, I'll play right away. At least I have a second guy that's a top tier guy. I could trade him for fantasy for value. And like we talked about earlier, like as soon as you leave this draft, these quarterbacks values go way up. So if you can get a guy early in a draft and build around that, do it, because you can get some awesome weapons for a quarterback. So I'm not against going 3 quarterbacks super early. Just depends on how you view the rest of the draft. Like if you're a person that you really base a lot of your talent off of volume of the wide receiver ones, and you go ZeroRB and stuff like that, I don't know how much I'd recommend it in that case, because you still need to use those early rounds for a top tier wide receiver. But if a guy's gonna fall to round 6, you could talk me into it. I think so.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of more or less what I've kind of tackled in this team of punting the running back and then just trying to load up elsewhere outside of having my hero running back with a Josh Jacobs. And that seems to be my favorite strategy. And I really rarely go into a draft with a preset strategy. I kind of see how the board goes, and then I select a kind of mantra. And the way that's led for me here is going with that HeroRB of spending up on that Josh Jacob and then waiting another 5 rounds to address the position. Now, I've been waiting, Hoov, and I'm so glad you made the Gus Edwards pick because I have been waiting so long to be in a draft where someone took Gus Edwards over J.K. Dobbins, and I need to. That is wildly impressive, and I'm jealous that I can't do that eyebrow wiggle. That was fantastic. Again, stage presence, but again, why you should watch on YouTube, people. But what's your thought on that? Because I gotta ask you about seeing Gus Edwards going. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, it's 3 running back spots ahead, but 3 running back spots ahead of J.K. Dobbins.
I'm a JK guy as well, and I'm gonna advocate for JK. It's not over. I think that there's going to be weeks that he is going to be fantasy relevant, but we also know how Harbaugh is. We know how Greg Roman is, and they are very pound the rock guys. So fresh legs and health is key. I'm not going to use the old overstated mantra of availability is the best ability. I'm not going to do that, but there is truth to that. And Gus Edwards having that familiarity with Greg Roman, as well as J.K. Dobbins, I'm optimistic.
That's why
another guy.
Yeah, that's why I'm not overly interested in Kamani Vidal, because I do believe that it'll be Gus Edwards and it'll be J.K. Dobbins as long as they're upright, with the healthy dosage of Vidal mixing in on third downs and so forth. And Josh, because you're listening clearly, I'm gonna have to ask you to calm down with the negativity. I'm not okay with this. J.K. Dobbins never got his breakout. It will come at some point. Maybe it'll take till 4 more years on his 7th team as a third string backup that finally gets a chance. But it'll happen because that is such a talented player. And it's not fair, Hoov. It's not fair football. But I'm getting emotional now.
What do you think about those last 2 picks of mine? Those are nasty. That's not even a good nasty. That's like a nasty.
I applaud you for having the cojones to take Gabe Davis, but at this point, why not?
Why not?
Because I mean, I'm watching, Luke McCaffrey, Jacoby Myers, Dontavian Wicks. These are all fine players for where we're going, but that's the tier we're in. So taking the big money guy that will be a starting quarterback with Trevor Lawrence, why not?
I'll say it. It was me. It wasn't Gabe Davis. Okay, I've been thinking really hard about this. It was me. We put Gabe Davis in on bad weeks that we shouldn't have. The matchups weren't available. The matchups that they were nice, Gabe Davis went off. So he is going to be an awesome best ball drafts. Definitely worth this value. Right here, you got to have the big brain to do it. And through osmosis, I have become smarter, baby, and I am ready to put Gabe Davis in week 7. Let me tell you.
Oh my goodness. What a humble man you are. That's so oh my goodness. As I'm realizing that I might have waited a little bit too long to take my second tight end because tight ends have gone off the board far earlier than I thought they were in this draft, as Ryan takes Jake Okonkwo away from me, which is going to force me in a very ugly position at some point soon, that I've decided to not think about until I get in that position. But Tyler brings up a good question before as well that I think it's always good to touch upon. While this draft is not exactly, we're not doing trades. It's just a mock draft we're doing on the show right now. And as I'm getting into my pick right now, how do you feel about trading up or down in startups? Is there a preferred strategy for you, Hoov?
I love it. If you can trade up, the volume is there in the higher leagues. And so if you're a win now team and you want to really go in on a dynasty team and get a championship, definitely trade up. Also, if you're going to trade up, make sure that you are participating in these types of mock drafts and come back. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and come back to Club Fantasy and hang out with us, because the more practice that you do having these things, the more that you'll know where these players are going to fall to and know how far you have to trade up. It's good to go up and get Malik Neighbors before he falls too far if you see that people are letting him slide. But you also probably shouldn't give up a 4th and a 5th and an 8th for the 3rd and a 12th. Just when you're getting ripped off in the trade. So make sure that you guys come back, subscribe, hit that hit the bell, and be notified so you guys can hang out with us more.
Yeah, no, and that's the great point. That's the great thing we try to do here is, it's also always awesome when Joel and I or anybody that we have on, we get to see reoccurring people and we get to see those reoccurring questions because none of this is a science. We're going to get some things wrong, but all we can do is try to give another stab at it and provide some context that hopefully will help you make the right decisions going forward. And again, Josh, they'd be lucky if it mirrors Dante Foreman. Dante Foreman has had some good seasons anyway. And God, no, block. Can I block our founder from this? This is just negativity.
What is going on with Josh today?
I don't need the negativity. It's May. May is the time for me to believe blind things. Like, he'll get hurt in July, so let me have my 2 months until my dreams get crushed.
Good Lord, Josh.
Good God. And Mr. Scampers also bringing up a good point about Will Dissly is still available. And I will note that I might have gotten an auto draft with Tucker Kraft. I might have waited a second too long, and I totally got a little bit befuzzled by the Chico Conquo steal right there, despite the lack of good situation he's in anyway, but whatever. We ride, we rally. The role asks a good question here as well. How's this trade looking? He traded Justin, I assume it's Justin Jefferson and Justin Fields and Troy Franklin for Devontae Adams and Joe Burrow. I'm going to pray to God that this is a super flex. But Scampers, I see that comment. I'll bring it up and I'm going to call you out for it as well. But this is just unbelievable. This Dobbins hate for no reason in the 16th round of a mock startup, for 15th. But either way, what I've clearly lost it here. But Justin Jefferson, Justin Fields, Troy Franklin for Devontae Adams and Joe Burrow. What do you think? It is a super flex, he says.
I'm gonna calculate it right now. And what do you think?
It's tough because I think the best player in the deal is still probably Justin Jefferson, but it's awfully close to the point where I will take the Adams and Burrow side. I'll take the Adams and Burrow side just because Devontae Adams is still producing. I have no worries about that, and I'd rather Adams significantly over Troy Franklin and Justin Fields, and Burrow for Jefferson is a close enough swap in a super flex for me. To the point where I can make the argument for either or. So getting Devontae Adams for Troy Franklin and Justin Fields on top, cherry on top. So not sure.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take the Adams, Burrow, and Franklin side, just kind of calculating it. Franklin probably going in the early thirds of most drafts in this. I also would think that Justin Fields, that's probably around his trade capital right now. Probably like a 303, like a 304 around there. Just like that's a good deal for Justin Fields in most leagues, early third. And I think that's kind of what you get out of Troy Franklin. Adams, probably worth two twos at this point, and Burrow is worth at least like 2 firsts and a 2. So JJ is worth 3 firsts in my opinion. Anyone that thinks he's worth like 4, like, come on, guys. Let's pump the brakes for a second. This is Dynasty. We're not creating super teams. Justin Jefferson is one player. So just remember that. So I think that the overall value for Franklin, Adams, and Burrow is just way too much to walk away from. It's hard to say no to JJ, but I would in that scenario.
Yeah. And there's very few trades where we say no to Justin Jefferson. Right?
I did. I did recently.
Did you? Oh, tell us about it.
A friend of mine from Twitter, member of the community. He did end up getting a trade to go through with someone else. He offered me Justin Jefferson. I'll pull it up. It was a good one too. It was like he unloaded so much.
Go. We love big trades. And in the meantime, while you're pulling that up, Scampers, I'm going to call you out on a positive note. You were not being positive about Dobbins being guaranteed $50,000. Listen, how much is Gus Edwards guaranteed? I'm actually genuinely curious about that because I don't have Gus Edwards guarantees in front of me, but I'll have to look that up. Either way, I think it is still wide open. It is 3.4 million guaranteed, to be fair. Yeah. So that is a significant amount more for Gus Edwards, but ultimately it's going to come down to the talent. And I'm not really too worried about Dobbins making the roster. So in terms of guaranteed money, it's just an injury related contract thing for me. So
Heck yeah. All right, you ready for this?
Hit me.
So they were gonna send me Kamara, Debo, and JJ, and I was gonna send them ETN, the 107, which was Roma Dunze, a 2026 first, and the 101, which was Caleb Williams. And I said no.
Yeah.
And then the trade that went through was, I gotta find it. It was basically that same deal: Devo, Kamara, and JJ for Addison, Achan, the 306, a 2026 first, and the 110, something like that. And I was like, how is that ETN? ETN is worth 2 firsts right now, at least.
Like, I was waiting for a bigger piece there.
Yeah, that's like ETN, in my opinion, is worth 2 firsts. And like, if you're giving up ETN, if you give up 2 firsts on top of that, that's a great deal for Justin Jefferson, in my opinion. Just because of the running back market, there's not like a bunch of running backs coming into this class that you're like, all right, that's the future of my team. Maybe Brooks, if you really are a Benson guy, you could believe that he's going to be like an RB2 for your team eventually. But yeah, like, ETN is a top 10 running back. And when there's wide receivers that are going to have top 12 weeks or top 24 weeks, maybe trading Justin Jefferson for a bunch of pieces isn't a bad idea. So I said no to it, but I'm also a crazy man. So what can I say?
Listen. There's very rarely one right answer in fantasy football, I find. So
that's right.
Things will happen how we least expect it. So we'll have to see how it all plays out. And I definitely think the process is sound. But either way, let's jump into some of our drafts here and try to run through these. And let's start with your team at the 12th, and we'll go 12 to 1. We'll go backwards to front. And Tyler, I see your question. I want to touch on it when we get to the Demario Douglas team there. But Hoov, how do you feel about your team now that it's complete?
Starting off with the CMC Kyler pick and the backlash that I received for that pick, I was a little worried. I didn't show it, but I went deep down in my stomach. I was curling up a little bit, but I recovered, and I feel very, very good about the way that this draft has unfolded. I feel like I definitely will be a playoff team, even though I'm drafting the 112 spot. That third round reversal is a godsend, let me tell you. But you got CMC as your RB1. Let's just start with the quarterback room, go running back, wide receiver, break it down that way. Quarterback room. So I got Kyler and Jaden Daniels and Geno Smith. I got 3 quarterbacks. That's a plus. Geno, like we alluded to, might not play the whole year, but most of the year. So that he'll be good for those bye weeks when Kyler and Jaden are out. So I feel like I'm good there. And each of those guys could have top 12 weeks. So I really like what they can produce. The running back room, you got Christian McCaffrey. Might have been a reach, but at the same time, you know what he's going to produce. Then you got Aaron Jones, someone that's going to be in a new offense, but with a rookie quarterback, is going to be heavily utilized with like dump offs and stuff like that. He was very good at getting the most out of Jordan Love at the points that he was in. So you know how Jordan Love loved to use the run game, and I feel like Aaron Jones is going to be very, very big in JJ McCarthy's success. And then Brian Robinson, like, that's my guy. We kind of knew how Austin Eckler was last year with the Chargers. With a bad offensive line, he wasn't able to show the explosivity that he still had. Me being at the Packer game when the Chargers played, you kind of saw him make that big break, and he didn't have that stuff that he once had. The juice, he didn't have the juice, and so I feel like with Washington not having a great offensive line as well, he won't be eating into Brian Robinson's touches as much as possible, because Brian Robinson has shown not the same as like a Pacheco or a Kyron Williams, but he's shown that he is going to be an NFL caliber running back, and he will get touches. So I like Brian Robinson there. We talked about Gus Edwards. Availability is the best ability in that situation, but more or less we know how Roman and Harbaugh are, and Ford. It's more, when do you think Chubb's going to come back? And I feel like he'll still have some value throughout the year. So getting him that late, really like that pick. Wide receiver room. got DJ Moore, Metcalf, Tank, JSN, Sutton, Gabe Davis, and Tyler Lockett. So I got all 3 wide receivers for the Seahawks, which is crazy. I never thought I would get Tyler Lockett. I was never a Tyler Lockett guy, but he has shown recently. And
Free.
until the wheels fall off, baby, let's do it. And at that price, let's do it. So can't be mad at that. Gabe Davis, boom or bust guy. Pick your weeks. And we've talked about throughout the show the other guys. So really like this wide receiver room. The later picks could be hit or miss, but I feel like it balances itself out with how much talent is there.
Yeah.
And then the tight end room.
The later picks.
Right.
Yeah.
And the 2 tight ends, Njoku, and I'm a Dulcich guy. So I feel like Dulcich is going to eat. He will be back. He's going to dust off that entry, and he is going to be back and better than ever because we know how Sean Payton is with those tight ends. So I feel like he'll be utilized. Bo Nix is going to be – it's going to be the Nix-Dulcich connection. I'm manifesting it right here, right now. Ooh, yeah. How we doing?
I would have went Dulcich over Tucker Kraft where I got auto drafted the like a few picks before. So I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm willing to just. It's been a rough few years after a promising start.
Yes.
But we're hopeful for year 3.
That's right.
It was injury that kept him off the field. I am a little bit worried that Sean Payton doesn't favor him, but we will cross that bridge in week 1. And until then, we will draft him with our last round pick and feel good about it. But to quickly go through some of these other teams as we're wrapping up here, we got right here at the 111, Anthony Richardson, J.J. McCarthy, Justin Fields, Spencer Rattler at the quarterback room, Amon-Ra, Drake London, Xavier Worthy, T.J. Hawkinson, Derrick Henry. I'm going just in order at this point. Trey Benson, Jake Ferguson, Zach Moss, Roman Wilson, Jermaine Burton, Curtis Samuel, Jaleel McLaughlin, Bucky Irving. Do any of those picks stand out to you? Obviously, 2 tight ends in the first 9 rounds, and also the Xavier Worthy pick that we talked about before, which I believe he commented about a bit later in the show. So I was trying to find that. But any thoughts on that team?
The running back room is a little scary for me. That might be the kicker. I like the way that they built the wide receiver room. I like Amon-Ra, Drake, and Worthy. Worthy as your wide receiver 3. I really like that. Now I kind of see why they reached on Worthy over Adunze and maybe some of those other guys. Because as your wide receiver 3, like I can get down with that, but maybe you reached a little bit too much. Maybe I would have taken a running back there and seen if Worthy would have slid back to me there. That's really only the bad thing. Fields, I don't know if I would take Fields if I didn't already have Russ, who went 3 picks ahead of him. So I'm not a Fields guy. I feel like the way that the NFL is that if there's a new product, there's a new guy, they're going to go with the new guy. And so the more you're sitting on the shelf, the less people are going to want to play with you. It's like in Toy Story when Squeaky or whatever his name was, he's up on the shelf or Wheezy, that was his name. When Wheezy was up on the shelf and he had that box, that's Justin Fields. He's like, I want to be played with, man. But I feel like Russ isn't a bad quarterback. And kind of the same thing I was alluding to with Geno is like, if he can play up to that contract, and he's literally getting paid shit. So he's definitely going to play up to that contract. So I don't think that they're going to be turning away from Russ unless he gets injured at any point throughout the year. So I don't really like Fields as my QB3 or Rattler as my QB3. I would have liked to have Carr if I was going to take Rattler as well. So there's some questions, but I can't be too mad about how they would have built it. Yep.
Yeah, it's why we mock to try out the different builds and things out like that. To move on to the 110 here, Jamar Chase, Breece Hall, Brock Purdy, Devonta Smith, Kirk Cousins, Deebo Samuel, Ramondre Stevenson, the snipe of Zamir White, doubling up at tight end here with Evan Ingram and Cole Kmet, Tyjae Spears, Sam Howell, Gardner Minshew, Jacoby Myers, Chuba Hubbard, Ray Davis, Eric All. I'm realizing that it's probably not worth the time to read the teams of every single team here. So I'm reading a 15-round startup mock draft in that way. But any of these teams, I'm curious on which picks stand out to you across the board here. I know the one thing I want to bring up was, here at the 1-7 team of seeing Sam Laporta and Dalton Kincaid going the first 4 picks, for behind the ZA, which is a fantastic name. But what do you think about that in a super flex league that isn't tight end premium going 2 tight ends early?
They caught my attention. I'll say that. That's a wow. Okay, that team would be a playoff team 100%. I really like that build. Drake May as your QB2, like you're going to be really banking a lot, but man, you knocked it out of the park. You got Love, May, Rodgers, and Jones. You got 4 starting quarterbacks like you did. You got Justin Jefferson, like I was talking about with CMC, like you got the best player arguably at that position. And then you got Jordan Love, who's going to have top 12 weeks, most top 12 weeks, could even have top 5 weeks. There's so many weapons there up there in Green Bay. So I really like this team. You want to trade? You want to trade? Because we could trade teams, man. I'll take that team any day of the week.
I think in a Superflex startup where if you're not gonna load up on quarterback early, I think this is how you do it.
Yeah,
this is how you
like
do
that.
it. You take the one that you really believe in, and then you get the future prospect in Drake May, and you pair it with veterans in Daniel Jones and Aaron Rodgers, both of which, barring injury for both of them, should provide top 15 value most weeks between the two of them. As streaming for your second Superflex. So yeah, I think this is a very good way to build it if you're going to go tight end early, if it is a tight end premium, which this one wasn't, but I don't think it would have changed. I think they both would have been there. Maybe Laporta a little bit earlier, but either way, let me touch on my team real quick. So going with the 4 quarterback build here, although I wait a little bit to touch the rest of them. But starting off with Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence. For me, I want to lock down my quarterback position in Superflex. It's really important to me just get the guys I believe in. And then from there, I really just look best player available. And for me, that's Chris Olave. I think Chris Olave is a fantastic player. And while there were a lot of players in that tier, and maybe I wish I went even 3-peat with Jared Goff, or if I considered maybe Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews or something like that, maybe it would have been an interesting build. But all food for another time, because I still got Brock Bowers a few hours later. And these 3 players I want to talk to you about, I have found myself mocking them nonstop, Hoov. And that's Christian Kirk, Chris Godwin, Calvin Ridley. I can't get over the cost associated with them. I can't stop myself. Gator, I swear to God. Gator, I swear. I will not be picking 101 next year. And if I am, that's okay, because I'm taking a very good running back. But whatever. Calm down, Gator. What do you think about the value that Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, and Chris Godwin are bringing right now, or do you think it's a value at all?
Well, Chris Godwin, I believe he's switching back to the slot.
Yes, he
so
is.
That's going to be amazing for him. So I really like that value right there. I'm a Christian Kirk guy, and so I don't understand how I couldn't get a 201 for Christian Kirk in this draft. That's nuts. Christian Kirk produces. He's produced since he got to Jacksonville. I mean, at a certain point, people had to get over this whole, well, he was only a wide receiver 3 in Arizona type shit. Now, he is definitely going to get more. He's going to eat more consistently than Gabe Davis, which is why he is so much higher. Brian Thomas, like this wide receiver room to me, is you're seeing it kind of throughout the league. It's like a Seahawks wide receiver room, and the Seahawks wide receiver room plus is the Bears. The Seahawks wide receiver room minus is the Jaguars. And so, if Christian Kirk is Tyler Lockett for Trevor Lawrence, sign me up, man. Sign me up every day. I love what Christian Kirk can do when he's on the field. If that injury doesn't impact him long term, you can't be mad at what he can do. I mean, he ate away from Calvin Ridley, like we are talking about too, and him going over there and having Will Levis. We saw it with DeAndre Hopkins last year. If the upside is that a single player can get 4 touchdowns fed to him in one single week, why wouldn't you want to take a stab on any of those wide receivers for Tennessee? The running back core, until they get another top tier tackle, I don't know how I feel about Pollard and Ty J, but the receivers, Will Levis is about to feed, and I really like that. So I mean, Tyler Boyd's there too, so that's just more that he could open up for a Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, and I'm really warming up to that pairing of Brian Callen as head coach and Calvin Ridley being this high price free agent acquisition they brought in, and that speaks volumes to me. I think this is going to be an offense that really airs it out, makes the most of Will Levis's arm, and whether it works or not, if it does, Calvin Ridley will be the biggest proponent of that. I think at this point he's very clear in a way going to be the best receiver there. I think being 2 years back in the league after his time off will be a big help for him. And at this point of the draft, where I'm looking at Christian Watson, Keenan Allen, Xavier Legette, Jalen Polk, being the next receivers that went off the board after him, it's to me, I don't know, maybe I'm still stuck on the Falcons version of Calvin Ridley, but I still see what can be a 4-year deal. Kind of counters the age concerns at age 29. So I'm still very much in on Calvin Ridley, and I find myself trading for him a little bit more than I am feel good about. But yeah, in this deal as well, or with this build, the reason I go 4 quarterbacks, and while some might be wondering about my running back room, the lack of depth there, is quarterback. I can get a running back and a wide receiver for Derek Carr come October.
Yeah,
I can get a starter at running back and then get another depth piece at receiver, and it won't hurt my quarterback room one bit. And I won't have to guess which running back got hurt because I can just pick them in October. And so I think that flexibility is going to be a very valuable thing for me. And in the very worst case as well, is if I lose Josh Allen or I lose Trevor Lawrence, I have a middling QB2 I can plug in with Derek Carr, who I can't stand, but
the more injuries that pop up throughout the year, the more the value pops up too. Like I remember a few years ago when Jimmy was with the Niners, like you could easily get a 2 for Jimmy Garoppolo anytime you wanted. Like if someone needed a quarterback and you sent Jimmy Garoppolo for a 2, it's like, do I really want to give this 2 for Jimmy Garoppolo? No, but I really badly need a quarterback that can put up at least 20 points a week. So yeah, you could get a second out of Derek Carr at any point throughout the year, I believe. So for most managers, some people are wise enough to be like, I'm not giving up a 2 for Derek Carr, but some managers will.
Yeah, and someone will feel compelled to after an injury or something like that, like you were saying.
Right.
And Josh also adds that usually we'd be going 5 or 9 more rounds deep into Dynasty. We get into true degenerate behavior there, where we're going into those deep, and that's also where I would also be double tapping running back, like Josh is saying here, where I would continue to take those stabs on the Rico Dowdles type that I took with my last pick there, of guys that have a route to starting. It's not clear, but if things change, or I take a handcuff that suddenly pops himself in a starting role for 3 weeks while someone deals with a hamstring injury, and those guys I can flip for more value, or I can just ride the wave. So that's how ZeroRB really pays off. And I'm sure Josh is thinking the same thing with how he structured his team by waiting until the 12th round to take a running back and going Kendra, Zach Charbonnet, Antonio Gibson, who I love that value at in the 15th round. I thought I quit Antonio Gibson, and it's popped right back up in my head. But and then Tyler Algier, all very good ZeroRB targets. I'm sure Joel will love this team. But as we wrap up, what do you think about Josh's team?
Josh's team literally looks like a team that like traded all of their assets for picks in this draft this year. It's like, all right, I'm just gonna build my team around my 4 pillars of Jackson, Herbert, Andrews, and Terry, and I'm just gonna trade everyone else. And that's what he did. He got Neighbors, Dunze, McConkey, Thomas. He's got a young quarterback he probably used last year, the early second. He's got Watson. He looks like a young dynasty team right there. So I'm sure there's a lot of teams out there that look very similar to this one. So can't hate on it by any means. I hated the Gibson pick, but other than that, I don't know about that.
I think Gator also throw some love to the stacks out there as well. We got a Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews stack there, and we have a few stacks in this in these drafts. I'm just a final question to send it off with, and I think that's a good one. And thank you so much to everyone for joining us on this on this mock because it was a blast to do, and it's always awesome to go through and get an update on how people are feeling about certain players. But how much do you value stacks, Hoov? Do you seek those out at all, or is that just kind of an added bonus if it happens to fall that way?
It depends on the league. Recently, like I traded AJ Brown and the 2025 burst to move up to the 101 to get Caleb Williams, and I had the 107. And ironically, Roma Dunze fell to me at 107, so I got that stack recently. In dynasty leagues and dynasty startups, I'm a stack guy where if I could get like a Jalen Hurts and an AJ Brown, like just seeing how they were 2 years ago, that you can get something out of it. And depending on the quarterback and knowing how much volume goes to one guy compared to the rest, then yes, go after a stack. But if it's a quarterback that kind of spreads the ball out, like I'm not really as big on like a Brock Purdy Ayuk stack as I would be like a Hurts Brown stack, or like a Richardson Pittman stack, or a Dak CD stack. Just certain things like that, that most of the volume's going there anyways. If I'm gonna reach possibly on a player to get both of them, I want to make sure that I'm getting the volume that's gonna compensate that reach. So it depends. It really depends on which combination it is. So
yeah, and I think the allure of that is always something that we try to talk ourselves into. And honestly, I think one of the better things I try to keep in mind with Dynasty is that we're trying to have fun here. Stacks are fun. Stacks are a lot of fun. I mean, there's no better feeling than that week 12 game where that one throw needed to go to that one player and it happened to fall that way. And it just happens to win that way. Of my first Dynasty title ever came because I played Dak Prescott over Carson Wentz. And that was actually to avoid a stack, because I had Dallas Goedert as well. And I was so tempted to just play the stack, and I would have lost my Dynasty title. So that kind of actually ruins my point now that I remember it correctly. But either way, it's a fun way to do it. And I think ultimately it's never a bad decision if you just ride on the fun side of it, because these are your teams. You want to have players that you enjoy, and we might think, player X is a better pick. We might think Odunze should go ahead of Xavier Worthy, but if Xavier Worthy is the player that fits what you want from your fantasy team, who are we to say otherwise?
Yeah, and stacks, like for like a wide receiver, like I said, the volume matters, but like you could talk me more into a stack for like a tight end than anything. If I could have, I would have grabbed Trey McBride with that Kyler pick. If the value was there, I would have loved that. Or Mark Andrews for like a Lamar, you got to go with that. Even a Goff, Laporta right now, like that's a stack that I would be interested in. Running back stacks I'd be interested in. Like I really like Najee Warren in a best ball. You don't know who's going to get fed that week with Arthur Smith, so if you can get both of them at price, like that's a stack I'm interested in. Or even their quarterback room, Fields, Wilson, like we alluded to, like I really like that too. So if you can get both of them, and like whatever happens with the quarterback room, I got both. Go get that stack.
Yeah, I think it's a great, another point being, of how that would fit with your Geno team, and especially in best balls and things like that. If taking Geno or taking Howell, we are very confident that DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, JSN are going to be steady fantasy producers. That means someone's throwing them the ball. And if Sam Howell's throwing the ball, he is chucking it, and it'll be awesome. It'll be awesome for fantasy. And at the very least, if it's Geno, you get middling QB2 with an upside of QB1, because we've seen it happen before. Right. Not too long ago without JSN. So assuming he eventually makes that leap, there's more production to come. So either way, thank you for joining me, Hoov. This has been, what a blast. What a blast this has been. Any final words for our amazing audience here today?
Yeah, do you want to do like a speed round of all those questions that we skipped at the start?
You know what? That's a good idea. Let me pull those up real quick because I had them on Twitter. I'll just start with you want to go one by one, because I think at this point that might be the quickest way for me to.
Let's do it. Speed round. Let's help out the viewers with all these questions, and then we'll break it down.
All right, I am jam this up.
Roll up my sleeves a little bit. Here we go.
There you go. Yeah, get the warm up in.
Get the warm up in.
Okay. Well, the one of the big news that we want to talk about, or not big news, but one of the narratives we want to talk about, we're trying to sniff out the off-season BS here on the Dynasty After Party. What's the fool's gold? Yeah, you're sniffing. What are you sniffing about this? DeAndre Swift to catch more passes in Chicago. That's the gist of what offensive coordinator. I'm totally blank. Is it? It's not. Well, it's obviously not Luke Getsy anymore. Whoever the
Shane Waldron.
Shane Walton. Thank you. Talking about how much of a big fan he is of DeAndre Swift, who obviously they brought into Chicago, and how he expects to utilize him more in the passing game. And with a rookie quarterback, Caleb Williams, that obviously makes some sense. But what do you think about that? Because Swift's passing or receiving ability has always been better in idea than it has been in concept.
The fast answer, I believe. If I really wanted to go into deep detail with it, like I think Shane Waldron gets fired by the end of the year, and it's gonna throw things out. It's gonna shake things up, and so I feel like Swift will get the volume while Waldron's there. But once the blame game starts getting pointed, like it's probably going to be Waldron's the first one to go. Much like Buffalo last year. It's like, well, I'm not the reason we're in last place right now. Like, we should be hitting a 4,000 yards. Well, why is this offensive coordinator giving the ball to Swift all the time? Boom, Waldron's out the door. And it gives Eberflus more time to come up with a plan. So Swift will be used most of the year, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, I believe that. I do question whether he can play on third downs, but because he sucks in pass protection, man. It's so bad.
Well, Roshan's there.
Bad. It's so bad. And that's, but at the same time, who will play above him? Because Khalil Herbert can't play third downs either. Will Roshan Johnson, who showed some flashes in pass protection, he was good in college too. Can he steal those third down work? We'll see. So I think it'll be an interesting thing to target. I find myself passing it to just a little bit more, but I know Ryan took him pretty high there. So, and Josh also points out that they said the same thing in Philly, but Jalen Hurts versus Caleb Williams. Jalen Hurts on the running back was always a little bit more of a question mark, but
people are only taking him that high because they think he's Taylor. So,
yeah. And we got another one in here, which is a fun one. The Chargers have reiterated their faith in 2023 first-round pick Quentin Johnston. Talk about how he's not done yet. The best is still ahead. He might peak this season. All these words from the Chargers GM. What are you thinking? Are you buying the QJ hype? They didn't add anyone really. It's Josh Palmer and Ladd McConkey.
Well, I have faith that they're going to make another Step Brothers movie, and I've given up hope on that too. So, no, I am not a believer. I do not think that Quentin Johnston is going to be much of anything. Not because I think that he is not good. I think that if you're in the NFL, you are a very talented receiver, and that you are going to be transitioning into an offense that is very run heavy. And he is not going to be this fantasy caliber player that everyone wants him to be. Ladd McConkey probably will lead the team in targets, but even then, like I'm not a McConkey guy. That I think that those targets are going to lead to a top 24 wide receiver season by any means. So, Quentin Johnston fantasy value dead.
Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan coming out, so I'm right there with you. And it's funny because I got in like a Twitter argument in like October last year of defending Quentin Johnston. Because I was like, if people are really calling you quits already, then you were never a believer. But
yeah, that's true.
But at the same time, I end up being, but like it felt wrong because I didn't believe in him, and now I'm in the same spot a few months later.
No, that's valid. That's valid.
Yeah, and
like, you can't give up that early.
Yeah, exactly. And I got to correct myself from the DeAndre Swift. It wasn't Shane Walton. It was the running back coach, Chad Morton, who was talking about that. But same concept of the usage that they expect there. Last one I wanted to touch on here of believing or disbelieving, this segment that we just made up on spot. Sean Payton, unsure of the running back rotation. He's talking about he'll go what we see. That's the quote about the about the possibility of them holding a running back competition this offseason. I am a Javonte believer. I believe in the bounce back 2 years post LCL, ACL, major knee issue. But I'm also a J.K. Dobbins guy, and I took both today. So I have been wrong before. But what do you think about this Broncos running back room? Do you think Jaleel McLaughlin, Samaje Perine are really going to be continue to be a thorn on the side?
I had to drop P. Ryan recently from a deep dynasty league just because I'm like, this is too much of a headache. I don't want it. I don't even care if he produces. I just don't want to deal with this headache all the time of seeing him on my team. Am I going to start him? This is going to be the week that he puts up 0.2 points or something crazy. So I think that very similar to other teams, that there's going to be like a mix of guys, that there is going to be a rotation to some capacity. But I really want to say that Javonte is still going to be the main guy, and P. Ryan like will take away targets, but it's not going to like kill his fantasy value. He probably won't be an RB1 or like maybe even an RB2. But I still would take a stab on Javonte in a flex for like a backup running back position. Like if I needed to replace CMC, for a week or whatever, like I'd take a Javonte Williams still at price, I believe. So
Yeah,
not as worried.
I'm not either. And Josh brings up a good point as well about how Samaje might not make it to week one because unless they carry 4 running backs, which is possible, it's either going to be P. Ryan or McLaughlin that takes that takes the hit here on the roster, and I can't imagine them cutting McLaughlin for Samaje Perine based on what we saw last year, but we'll see. Because Estime and Javonte are obviously pretty much set up to be on the roster based on their investment, and I really love Javonte coming out, so I'm not willing to quit quite yet. And another thing that Josh pointed out, which I was going to bring up, was Javonte led the running back room in targets last year because he's a damn good pass catcher. Man's got soft hands. He was very good at it in college too.
Crazy.
He's good at it here. He has that 3-down skill set, but I think, and it feels so lazy, Hoov, to go back to New Orleans when I'm playing Deshaun Payton, and if I'm trying to do a lazy comp, but I really think that they're going to try to set this up as a Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara system, which I know it's a lazy thing to almost point out, but between Javonte and because between Javonte and Jaleel, where Jaleel's taking that Kamara role and Javonte's going to take the Mark Ingram role, and if the offense gets to moving as we expect or as we hope, that means plenty of touchdown upside and plenty of touches for Javonte Williams, who is clearly going very late in dynasty startups. But
yeah, I can't be mad at the Saints comp because at the draft I was hoping that they drafted Jared Verse to be his next Cameron Jordan. So can't be mad at that. Can't be mad by any means. So
yeah, that'll be fun. Hopefully,
love it.
Yeah, Jared Verse is awesome, but yeah, that'll be fun. Yeah, and yeah, I know he didn't draft him, Josh, but I'm hoping that he doesn't hold that against him. But either way, Hoov, thank you for joining me here today. Be sure to follow my man, not just for the fancy takes, but the amazing style, the swag, everything that he's got here. Hoov at HoovTube, HOOV Tube on Twitter. Be sure to check him out there. It's Twitter, not X. I refuse to make that transition because I live in the past. But thank you for joining me here today. This has been a blast.
Yes, sir. It was nice I made my debut on Club Fantasy at the draft, but I had to make a return. I had to come back because I believe I'm good to go. I can make the confirmation. I can say it. I can preach to the choir. How you doing? Your boy HOOV is here to stay at Club Fantasy, the newest addition to the team. I am so happy to be here. I am so excited to be making content with the entire team, like being a part of it at the draft and seeing how everyone operates and seeing the leadership and just like communication between everyone. Like I could not sign up faster when the opportunity was presented to me. So I am super excited to be here. I'm here. QB1 has arrived, baby. Let's go. Let's go.
And I second Gator here with the let's go, man. I know I at least speak for everybody when we're talking about how excited to see you joining this group because, you've been around it so long and you're an awesome Twitter presence to follow and clearly a superstar on the show as well. So everyone be sure to follow Hoov here. Again, at HoovTube on Twitter. You can follow myself at Michael_Sicoli. And just keep an eye out for this man to my right now because he will be on other Club Fantasy shows like Gators himself, right here on Club Fantasy FFL tomorrow on Mocking with the Stars at 10 p.m. So just be sure to check that out for Gators show that I always have an alarm set for. Keep that on the background. Always good to hear that amazing voice that Gators got. But thank you all for joining us here on this episode of the Dynasty After Party, talking about the startup strategies in your Dynasty mock drafts. Stay healthy, stay safe. Thank you all for joining us. Remember, Dynasty's like disco ball, keeps on spinning year round. So join the club every single Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern, here on Club Fantasy FFL. Again, stay healthy, stay safe.